They sent out a national warrant for his arrest. He's from a very small town, Greenville, South Carolina, right? So in Greenville, South Carolina, on the news, they're like, if you slept with this man, you need to go get tested. Why? That same day, the testing line is out the door. Out the door. Everybody's going to get tested because everybody slept with this man. He slept with and knowingly infected over 200 people.
That took place. So I did end up, like my daughter said, having him put in prison for knowingly infecting me with the HIV virus.
I say, sure, bring him back in, because guess what? If I'm HIV positive, he's the reason why. So she brought him back in the room, and I can remember that day as if it happened yesterday. He just looked in shock when she told him, and it wasn't a shocked look as if, oh, she could have given me HIV. It was more of a look like, wow, she found out.
Today, I'm bringing you a story that's not only disturbing, it's unforgettable. It's the kind of story that leaves an entire community shaken and forces us to ask the hard questions about trust, silence, and the devastating consequences of deceit. This is the story of George Martinez, a man who was exposed for knowingly infecting over 200 women with HIV. The situation became so critical, so widespread, that it was aired on the evening news. Authorities made a rare and chilling move. They issued a public health warning, urging every single woman who had ever been intimate with him to get tested. The very next morning, the line outside the clinic stretched around the block. Women, some single, some married, some pregnant, stood in silence, many of them holding hands or fighting back tears. Their lives had been turned upside down by someone they once trusted. But this story doesn't stop at the headlines. It goes deeper. Recently, the daughter of the woman who exposed George Martinez came forward to share her truth. She was just a child when it all happened, watching her mother suffer emotionally, mentally, and socially in the aftermath. The cheating was one thing, the disease another, but the public shame, the media frenzy, and the quiet judgment from neighbors and family, that left scars that haven't fully healed. For her, this wasn't just the story of a scandal. It was her childhood. Martinez knowingly carried HIV and chose not to disclose it to his 24-year-old girlfriend, who was pregnant with twins. She only found out after a prenatal checkup revealed she was HIV positive. By then, it was too late. Gregory had known he was HIV positive since 2002. They'd been together for years. Not once did he suggest safer sex or admit the truth. When questioned, he told investigators he didn't want to tell her because he didn't want her to leave him. Let's go ahead and jump right into it.
To this man. Well, they did get married, but before they got married, they decided to do everything that they were supposed to do. They didn't sleep with each other. They had a big church wedding. They even went and got tested for STDs. At the STD clinic, they stood in front of each other in front of the doctor. She said to him, "Oh, I'm clean, I'm good, I'm tested, I don't have anything." She said the same thing for him. She didn't look at the papers, thought nothing about it. They get married. They even moved to South Carolina. Mind you, we're originally from Florida. They get married. I don't go with them. I'm like 5 years old at this time. My mother gets pregnant, and so then she goes into the doctor. And they call her back afterwards. She's used to this because she has diabetes, and normally they call you back and say, "Hey, you have diabetes. You need to be more careful." No, they said to her, "Hey, you have HIV." She was like, "What do you mean I have HIV? I've been with the same man. What do you mean?" Mind you, this is 2005. They don't know as much about HIV as they do now. And so primarily that happened with gay couples. But gay people aren't the only people who can get HIV, of course. So she finds this out and she's like, "Oh my God, what?" They also tell her, "You're pregnant with twins." But she doesn't tell anybody for about a month just because she's so stressed and she's in shock. And so she finally tells him, and the first thing he says is, "Please don't tell anybody." And he also told her, no one else will love you. You have to stay with me, all this crap. She calls my grandparents. They come and get her. She takes everything she came into that marriage with. And the only thing she left him with was a microwave. Period. She comes home and she tells a few family members. And so my aunt calls her and is like, "Hey, turn on the news." There's a story on the news where one person knowingly infected the other person with an STD and they got prison time because it's illegal. So then she realized, hey, this is a crime. And so we have a family friend who's a police officer. She tells him and he's immediately oh my God, He starts crying. He immediately goes, "We need to get him on a two-way call and have him admit it. If he admits it, then we can get him in trouble with the South Carolina laws instead of the Florida laws. And the reason they were trying to get him in trouble with the South Carolina laws is because South Carolina gives a bigger punishment than Florida. Are we shocked? No. So she gets him in this two-way call, and they start talking, and basically he's being not a good person. But she gets him to admit it, and that's very important. They send out a national warrant for his arrest. He's from a very small town, Greenville, South Carolina, right? So in Greenville, South Carolina, on the news, they're like, if you slept with this man, you need to go get tested. Why? That same day, the testing line is out the door. Out the door. Everybody's going to get tested because everybody slept with this man. He slept with and knowingly infected over 200 people. Right. I was like, what? Oh my God. 200 men and women. So not just women, baby. It's insane. That is a crime. One of the people he slept with was his boss. He worked at a pretty big company. I think it was like something. I don't know. It was a big company. He slept with his boss. The boss went to go get tested and found out she was infected. When she found out she was infected, her partner also found out they were infected, but she didn't talk to him. Like, this woman goes to everybody because she was just so in shock and she needed to process it. Mind you, this is a pretty big deal, you know? And so she wanted to process it. She didn't talk to her ex at all. And so we're going to pause that story for a second and jump to now. A few months ago, me and my mother had to go back to Greenville, South Carolina, where most of this took place, and go to court because he hadn't been paying child support for the twins. As we go here, it's just such a synchronistic day, and we're meeting so many people and like just talking with them and having a really good time. We start talking to this one lady, and we're like telling her this story because like it's just the vibe to share. It's a very interesting story. So we get to the part of the story that me and you are in right now. And my mom is saying, yeah, he slept with his boss and she found out she was infected. She completely ghosted the guy that she was with just because she was in such shock. And he was also in shock. So this man is just going crazy because it's like, she won't talk to me. I'm also infected. I don't know anything. And so we're telling the lady the story. And my mom goes, yeah, so my ex-husband's boss is walking out of her garage on Mother's Day. The lady that we're talking to, she goes, wait, you mean the lady that walked out of her garage on Mother's Day and her boyfriend shot her to death? Oh my God, that was my aunt. We're sitting here telling this lady this story, and then she starts finishing the story for us because the lady, the boss, that was her aunt. So we're just like, what the heck? What do you mean that was her? Like, what? Do you know how small of a world it is? And she was like, yeah, I was young when that happened, so I didn't really know like why she passed away or like what the true cause of her death was. I just heard that like it was a tragedy and he just went crazy and shot her. We had no idea that this was why, and it was linked to that case. So we're just like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is happening. And the way everything just connected was literally insane, guys. Like, but basically the twins' dad, the one who infected my mother, he went to prison for about 5 years. He's out now and not paying child support. Obviously, that's why we had to go to the courthouse. But after that, my mom became an HIV advocate. She's really well known on Facebook, and I believe her face is in a bunch of like museums around the country. Oh, and she was so stressed from all of this and from finding out she had HIV that she actually had my twin siblings at 4 months. They were not supposed to live. Do you know how hard it is to have a baby at 4 months and keep them alive? It's a miracle. The twins do have disabilities now. Definitely probably as a result of being born too early. My brother has cerebral palsy and my sister has autism. Ooh. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. We're all living now. Everybody's pretty fine. My mom, when she was an HIV advocate, which she technically still is, she'd go around speaking this story to schools, churches, anybody who like wanted her to come and, you know, speak about it, telling people to practice safe, you know.
There's a lot of people that he slept with who, if you think about the domino effect of events, you sleep with one person, guess what? You don't know who that person's sleeping with. They go sleep with somebody else. And the cycle continues, especially if nobody's getting tested. On top of that, I found out that he was sleeping with other women. He was also sleeping with men. Found out that he got a woman pregnant while we were married. He got her pregnant, infected her. I found out when I came back to get my belongings and leave him for good. Actually, I didn't find out until after I left. I left him in December of 2007. And in December of '07 is when the baby was born that the woman had. And I found out after I left from his sister, actually. Because at this point, I decided to tell everybody. I decided to tell, call his mama, call his sister, whoever. I was like, did you know that your brother was HIV positive? His sister did not know that he was HIV positive. His sister, did know about the baby though, because she came for Christmas that year when I was gone. He took her to see the baby. And he took her with the intentions of her only knowing that she was going to see a baby of one of his friends. And when they got there, he said to her, oh, you see the baby? Isn't the baby pretty? And she said she looked at the baby. She looking at him. She like, the baby kind of like him. And that's when he told her that it was his baby. And she asked her brother, well, does Renee know? And he lied and told her I knew. So his sister was under the impression I knew. Now, when his sister saw me when I came back to South Carolina before she left, she didn't mention it to me. She didn't even question and say, oh, he told me about, the baby. And I would have immediately said then, what baby? She would have known right then that I didn't know what she was talking about. And so it's just really crazy that took place. So I did end up, like my daughter said, having him put in prison for knowingly infecting me with the HIV virus. He spent 5 years in prison, which is the max in the state of Florida. Since then, I remarried. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. I remarried, divorced. That marriage ended in domestic violence, and my husband cheating on me with a first lady of the church. Yes, a pastor's whole wife. Which actually prompted me to not want to step foot in anybody's church ever again. I come to your funeral. But I'm not going to go worship in nobody's church, because that just left a sour taste in my mouth. Because how you supposed to be the pastor's wife and you cheating on your husband with my husband? And, I ended up having to tell the pastor about that. So, yeah, my second marriage ended in domestic violence, cheating, and a divorce. I've had plenty of other relationships since my diagnosis. It does not stop me from having a relationship or finding love. I just have come now to a place where, actually, I'm about to be 40 on April 22nd, that I'm comfortable where I'm at. If I meet someone and I decide I want to date or have a relationship, I'm going to do it in the most sincere way. I'm going to do it in the most unforced way, in a sense. And when I say unforced, I'm basically saying, like, I'm not going to use force. That's one of the biggest things. I was just in a relationship that ended in last June for 2 years because the person I was with, they started being narcissistic and started using a little bit of force. And of course, in that narcissism, it got kind of turned on me as, oh, I'm using force, and I know I wasn't. Because if I was using force, I would have long ago had relocated to California. I would have long ago did a lot of things that I didn't do. And so now, moving forward, I'm just like, I'm taking time to myself. Still sharing my story, still educating, and just doing all that stuff. So, yeah. It has been a long 40 years of my life. A lot of people don't experience a lot of stuff that I've experienced in these 40 years. And, yeah. Do I look back on some of the stuff and say that I regret anything? I think the biggest thing that I'll tell anybody that I regret in my whole life is not asking to see the piece of paper when the doctor gave us our test results when we got tested for STDs. Had I, asked to see that piece of paper, I think that would have really, really, really been huge in my life. Because I trusted him. And I try to tell people all the time, I'm not going to ever sit here and tell you don't trust your partner, don't trust the person you're in love with, because that's what we do. We don't get in a relationship or a marriage or any type of situation with someone that we love if we're not going to trust them. Like, who gets into a relationship and immediately, oh, I don't trust you? Like, that's not how love works. Love is supposed to be kind, it's supposed to be gentle, it's supposed to be the best thing that you've ever experienced in your life. So yeah, you're gonna trust whoever it is that you're giving your heart to, but you don't expect that this is also going to be a person that can do something like that. And that's what he did. He took my trust and literally took it for granted, because hey, I did. I sat right there in front of him and that doctor, and I didn't ask to see that piece of paper. I just basically said, you know what? I'm negative. He told me his test results were negative, and I went by that. I knew I was telling the truth. This was somebody I was getting ready to marry. I assumed that he was telling me the truth also. So, yeah. It's just one of those things where shit happens, What they say? What's that cliche? You get lemons, you make lemonade, So that's where I'm at. And I really just try to make sure people are educated, especially our young adults. So yeah, I'm about to give you some statistics real quick while I got a couple minutes to real quick. So listen, our ages 13 to 24 are one of our highest infection and new rates. Like, if you are between the ages of 13 and 24 years old, and it probably are because you're on TikTok, more than likely you are. You are in the age group for some of the highest new infections of HIV and AIDS and other STDs. So you guys need to be talking to your parents. You need to be talking to someone about sex. Don't just go out here thinking because you saw a little sex scene on a movie that you know what you're doing. Make sure you understand how to use condoms properly. Make sure you understand to not be afraid to ask someone to use a condom when you're having sex, because a lot of people, that is what happens. A lot of people feel like, oh, if I ask for a condom, they're gonna think something wrong with me. No, if you don't ask for a condom, I'm gonna think something wrong with you, and that's just the reality of it. So make sure you guys are getting tested. Don't be afraid to get tested. Don't be afraid to know your status. Make sure you know your partner status, and that you guys are being safe and staying safe, and that you are, looking out for you. I tell everybody all the time, you can care about and do for everybody else in the world, but are you taking care of yourself? Are you doing for you? You have to focus on you. Controlling and taking care of your health and knowing your status is the biggest thing. And that's what I want to leave you guys with. Hope you guys got something out of this. And I really appreciate my daughter for even doing this without my knowledge.
Yeah. When I was first diagnosed, it was November 21st, 2007. I found out 3 weeks before, which was the first week of November, that I was pregnant with twins. And so I made a prenatal appointment with the doctors. By then, I was living in South Carolina with my new husband. I was a newlywed. And went to an appointment the 21st, which was the day before Thanksgiving of that year. And went in for being dehydrated. I kept throwing up and just not feeling well. And when I went in, she had already did labs. So she said, okay, well, I have your labs back. And I said, okay, well, is everything okay with my labs? And she said, oh, yeah, everything's fine. We just have one problem. And I'm like, okay, what's the one problem that we have? Is it diabetes? Because I've had gestational diabetes with my 8-year-old. She's like, well, no. Can we ask your husband to step out of the room? So I'm like, okay. So she asked him to step out. She basically just looked at me and said, you tested positive for HIV. And I kind of got into a blank stare. I looked over at the wall because that was really the only thing I wanted to focus on. I didn't want to look her in the face. I didn't want to, I was completely in shock along with not feeling well. And she said, well, do you want us to bring your husband back in the room? I say, sure, bring him back in, because guess what? If I'm HIV positive, he's the reason why. So she brought him back in the room, and I can remember that day as if it happened yesterday. He just looked in shock when she told him, and it wasn't a shocked look as if, oh, she could have given me HIV. It was more of a look like, wow, she found out. I left him on January 1st, 2008. February 14th, actually the beginning of February, I was sitting at home and I was looking at the news, and there was a story that came across where there was a homosexual couple, an older male and a younger male. The older male had knowingly infected his younger male partner. And at that moment, I found out that knowingly infecting someone without disclosing your status to them was a felony crime in the state of Florida. So what I did, I immediately got on the phone, called the sex crimes unit at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, spoke with the detective, and I let him know what was going on. He let me know, okay, well, get us a police report, which I did. And once they got their police report, the first thing they wanted to do is to get a recorded confession from my ex-husband. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to get a recorded confession, you know? And he's all the way in South Carolina. Here I'm in Florida, you know. So at this time, he's begging me to come back to South Carolina to stay married to him. So, okay, let me use this to my advantage. So over the course of the couple days, I kind of played it off. Yeah, I might come back home, and yeah, I miss you. Yeah, I still love you. Knowing good and well, I absolutely, positively did not love him anymore, and I was not going back. February 14th, Valentine's Day. His Valentine's Day gift for me was calling him with the detective on three-way, with the recorder on, while I'm asking him every question that the detective wanted me to ask. Because before we did the three-way, I said, okay, well, what do you want to know? I said, okay, well, now I got to figure out how am I going to get these questions to him and him answer them. So I called him. I'm all sad. I'm like, okay, well, I got to go see a psychologist, and they gave me a questionnaire, and I need all these questions answered so they could treat me. Whoop-de-woo. He answered every single question. He answered questions about how he was diagnosed, when he was diagnosed, how long did he know, which he had known he was positive since 2002. He answered questions about, you know, did he know how he got it, which he didn't know. And by then I had found out that he was not only sleeping with other women, but also other men. And once I got the recorded confession, they issued a nationwide warrant for his arrest. They went to South Carolina. They arrested him. Took months, but they extradited him back to Jacksonville. He pled guilty. He got sentenced for the maximum in the state of Florida, which is only, I hate it, but it's only 5 years in the state of Florida. He got 6 months served, so he only had to do 4.5 years. And he's scheduled to get out March of next year. March 2012, he's scheduled to be released. A lot of people feel like, oh, if I avoid this person because they're positive, then it won't happen to me. Don't think that just because you're in a monogamous relationship or you're married that it can't happen to you. I was in a committed marriage. I wasn't in a relationship. I wasn't dating. And here, this guy that I've known for 5 years is positive, didn't tell anybody, and gave it to me. I mean, it can happen to anybody. And it probably has happened to a lot of people who just don't even want to know if it's happened. They assume, okay, I'm with this person, I'm married, it's not going to happen. So just understand that it can happen to you just as easily as it happened to me.